And the Turks obviously were okay with standing on top of the Armenians for hundreds of years. I mean, the Turks were the only ones who were allowed to hold a political office. They were the only ones allowed to vote, I think, obviously. A lot of rights. They were the only ones allowed to join the military for hundreds of years. You know, that sort of thing. And yeah, only until really the Balkan insurrections that the idea that the Armenians could stand up for themselves really implanted itself in the Armenian mindset. That they started thinking for themselves, kind of autonomously, sort of. Anyway, the dominance culture. When the yeah, if there's dominance culture, there's definitely going to be some sort of xenophobia, and a lot of it is also the fear of losing the dominance culture. They didn't want to let there's a lot of Armenians pushing for reforms to treat Armenians equally to the Turks, and now for hundreds of years, and this is explicitly stated. How can you say that the Armenians are to be treated the same as the Turks? This is something that's never happened before. It's going to take time. This is why the reforms were delayed over and over. It was stated by people like Talat Pasha. It's taken a long time because people don't want to get used to it. There's the thing with common law versus written law, all that bullshit. It's the fear of losing the dominance culture. And last but certainly not least is right-wing extremism, which is basically, pan-Turkism and trying to hold on to the past, resisting the reforms that were being put forward, trying to stay with the old mindset and resist new things. And anybody that did not go along with the right-wing thing, trying to hold on to the past, which is basically the Armenians. Anyone who didn't do that was treated very poorly. There was a lot of boycotts of Armenian goods and all this other crap, also besides the violence, but Turks won't admit to that so much, but they will more easily accept that there were Turkish boycotts of Armenian goods, and really trying to oust the Armenians, teach them a lesson. And once the Armenians were, some of the Armenians were ousted from their business or physically just moved out of the town, Turkish people were put in to take over their business. As I've stated in a previous video, where it was the policy that after they deported the Armenians, they put Turks in. But they did this before that policy was legal. They just informally boycotted them and forced them out of town. Turks moved in, took over their business. Right-wing extremism. Now, according to the sociological model, feelings of powerlessness, fear, and anger, they lead. Let me see here. Okay, feelings of powerlessness. All right, I'm sorry. Let me try this. Let me start over. Enemy and losing out to modernization lead to feelings of powerlessness and anger. And feelings of powerlessness, fear, and anger lead to violence. And another contributing factor to what leads to violence, besides feelings of powerlessness, fear, and anger, are the collapse of civilization and crisis of masculinity schemas. These two things, collapse of civilization and crisis of masculinity, also lead to violence. Now, who orchestrates this violence? That is the political culture, dominance culture, and right-wing extremism that will organize the violence. And where is that violence directed at? It is directed towards the weak, the foreigners, and the asylum seekers. Obviously, this sociological model is going to have to be kind of adapted a bit, because it's an ethnographic analysis of surveys of Turkish professors. But this is the sociological model, and it can easily be applied to history, as I've sort of demonstrated here, with just an informal thing about some of the history, just to give examples as to, oh, this is why that's in there. And the point is to show that this xenophobia persists to this day. And I have my hypothesis from people like Nomad Turk 43 and other Turks who believe that they're the superior race, and those treacherous Armenians, it's in their blood, bullshit like that. I can clearly see that there's a lot of Turkish racism, even in my Turkish step family, who don't want to talk about the Armenians, and especially about the Armenian genocide. They think of those Armenians like, they make a face, like, and just kind of turn away. And so I kind of have this sneaky suspicion, based on the YouTube people and the way my Turkish step family treats the Armenians, just through their physical behavior, I think there's some kind of xenophobia here. So let's test it. And that's exactly what I'm going to do this fall. And that's going to make a lot of YouTube videos right there. Just progression in my ethnographic analysis. And also, I can make some videos as to how you do the analysis. How do you do a qualitative ethnographic analysis of open-ended questions in a survey? It's pretty cool. Anyway, yeah, to recap, Nomad Turk 43, he is a racist. He believes the Turks are the superior race. I've given a clear counterexample, my Turkish step family, airheaded all the way to hell, and it's not a fault of their race. Obviously, it's a fault of their culture. I've said that racism goes back for at least 100 years in the Ottoman Empire, and I've shown some of the causes: Pan-Turkism, the ideologies, Ziya Gökalp and his dream of Turan, Turkish is the primary language, and a lot of newspaper things, and anybody will tell you that the racism was very evident at the time. And obviously it's evident now. And I've described briefly the sociological model that I'm going to use for my qualitative analysis for my senior thesis in college. And Krell et al., just on a final note, how he got this is pretty interesting, how he made this model. He was, in his article, he describes how he needed something to describe what was going on in Germany in the mid-90s. There was a lot of racism going on in Germany in the mid-90s, apparently. And to describe it, he combined three well-established sociological theories quite well. He integrated them quite well, and he used the model to describe the racism in Germany, I think, quite successfully. So I figured, well, let's see if this model for xenophobia holds up against the Turks. It's already well established and well accepted. Let's see if there is a lot of xenophobia in Turks to this day. We can show that there was a lot of xenophobia at the end of the Ottoman Empire. Does that racism still exist? That is the question. And yeah, I basically talked for too long again. Anyway, this is Laird of Garskaden, signing out.